Today we are predicting the record of every Major League Baseball team, who's going to do what in the playoffs, and the eventual World Series champion. Let's get into it. So starting off in last place, I have the Colorado Rockies finishing in 5th place with 58 victories. Key departures for them are Brett Suter and Chris Flexen. Additions are Cal Quantrill, Dakota Hudson, Jalen Beeks, Jacob Stallings, and Anthony Molina. I think that's going to help their rotation a little bit, but really, we're kind of just rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. It's not going to really do any good. They do have some young players that I expect will probably make a step forward, a leap, well, maybe not a leap forward, take a step forward, but in the end, they just don't have the talent to do really a whole lot of any good. We're actually giving them the worst record in the National League. Next up, we have the San Francisco Giants. I have them at 79 wins and in 4th place. And they had a relatively active offseason. They picked up Jung-Ho Lee, Jorge Soler, Jordan Hicks, Robbie Ray, and Tom Murphy. And we actually have something to talk about here because the Rockies didn't really... They were rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. In this case, they've got some players who could be an impact. Jorge Soler is a hell of a bat. He hits the ball hard. Tom Murphy, when healthy, he destroys left-handed pitching, but health is a serious issue. You never know what you're going to get. If he's healthy, he can be an impact platoon catcher for them. And Robbie Ray, former Cy Young Award winner, but he's coming off injury. He's coming off surgery. He's expected to start as early as July, but that's as early as. He still might be out for the entire year, and even at that, you don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get Cy Young Robbie Ray, or are you going to get him basically in our extended rehab stint in the major leagues? So he's going to be a bit of an X factor. I'm not counting on him being any good if he does pitch this year. I think he'll get back to being a very good pitcher in his career, but not this year. And Jung-Ho Lee, he's kind of also an X factor. First year in the major leagues, coming overseas, and center fielder, something the Giants desperately needed. They had so many corner outfielders, not a center fielder, so they addressed that issue. Is he going to be able to hit? That's the thing. If he can hit, he'll be huge for them. If he can't, well, he won't. Key departures. Brandon Crawford, at the tail end of his career, just wasn't really any good. Jock Peterson, fantastic platoon bat, but can't play in the field, can't hit lefties. Mitch Haniger didn't really do anything for them in the 1 year that he was there. Sean Manaea, Ross Stripling, Anthony Desclafani, Alex Wood, Jacob Junis, John Brebbia, and Scott Alexander. So they lost a lot more than they gained as far as bodies, but I think the quality of what they brought in was higher than what they lost. So really, in the end, I think they're probably going to do about what they did last year, which they had 79 victories last year. What did I say? 78. So yeah, I'm pretty much right in line with that. If they have some injuries, if depth becomes an issue, they have a lot less of it this year. But I think they raised the ceiling. Raised the ceiling. Next up, we have the San Diego Padres, and I have them at 84 victories. That's 2 wins more than last year, but I think that team was extremely disappointing last year, so I expect them to kind of take a step forward from that aspect. But they also had a lot of moving pieces this offseason. Let's get to that. Key additions are Michael King, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Yuki Matsui, Wu Sago, Wandy Peralta, and Kyle Higashioka. A lot of depth there. They brought in a lot of solid pieces, but unfortunately they lost some superstars. They lost Juan Soto, Josh Hader, Blake Snell, Nick Martinez, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, and Trent Grisham. Trent Grisham, because we just ended with him, really struggled with the bat, but one thing that never slumps, defense and speed. He performed it with the glove, so they're gonna miss that. But Blake Snell was due for a regress because yeah, it's just the nature of Blake Snell. So losing him isn't that big of a deal. I don't expect him to be as good as he was last year. Josh Hader, on the other hand, that is a big loss outside of kind of a 1 year rough stretch for him. He's been one of the best closers in the league. And of course, Juan Soto, arguably the greatest pure hitter in the game. So they're losing quite a bit. And of course, Nick Martinez and Michael Wacha. Really, in the end, I think they've lost more talent than they've brought in. But they were able to find so many ways to lose last year. I expect them to do better. There's a lot of talent on this team. Does that mean they make the playoffs at 84 wins? You'll have to wait to find out. Next up, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks coming in second place with 86 victories. That's 2 more victories than last year. Key additions are Eugenio Suarez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Jock Peterson. Key departures are Tommy Pham, Evan Longoria, and Mark Melanson. So overall, I think this is absolutely, as far as just, they had three going in, 3 going out, and I would say the 3 they brought in were better than the 3 they lost. If you just go by position, Eugenio Suarez versus Evan Longoria, that's actually probably a pretty even swap there. They're both seriously on the decline at this point in their careers. You're not going to get a whole lot out of either of them, unfortunately. So that's not going to make a huge difference. But Eduardo Rodriguez versus Mark Melanson, you can make an argument that Mark Melanson is basically the reliever version of Eduardo Rodriguez, except Melanson's right-handed, Rodriguez is left-handed. That's naturally more valuable. Plus, he's a starter, also naturally more valuable. And then you're bringing in Jock Peterson versus Tommy Pham, both outfielders, although Jock Peterson really shouldn't own a glove at this point. So, of course, Tommy Pham is more valuable with the glove, but Jock just does work versus right-handed pitching. I think that bat will more than make up for the lack of glove. And the fact is they kind of needed a DH anyway. They have plenty of young outfielders. They didn't really need somebody to field. So with their needs, Tommy Pham, if he was on this team instead of Jock Peterson, probably would be DHing a significant amount of time anyway. So then in the end, Jock Peterson's got the better bat. That makes him more valuable to this team. So the fact is, they got better overall. I'd say marginally, slightly, but I would say definitively. That's a little conflicting. Anyway, better than they were last year as far as additions and losses. And then, of course, they're such a young team. I expect them to take a step forward overall, but you never know. There's a lot of rookies, a lot of second-year players. Second-year players often take a step back, especially hitters. We'll see if that's the case this year. But overall, I still think that they're better. I displayed that with their record, giving them 2 more victories and second place. Now, of course, first place, is anybody picking anybody other than the Dodgers? I think not. The question is, how many victories? And I have them with 108 victories. It is very difficult to predict and accurately predict a team to have over 100 wins. So many things have to go right for that to happen, in addition to talent. And let's face it, no team in this league is more talented than the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so that's why they are the only team, I'm telling you right now, they are the only team I predicted to have over 100 victories. They just have too much talent to be denied. And do I really have to go over this team? I guess I will a little bit. Key additions: Shohei Ohtani, Yoshio Yamamoto, Teoscar Hernandez, Manuel Margot, Tyler Glasnow, James Paxton. I didn't know about that one. Matt Gage. Yes, I'm reading all this off a list, so that way I didn't have to go into deep research. Yeah, I'm cheating a bit. I don't care. That's how you get things done. But key departures: JD Martinez, Lance Lynn, Ryan Pepoy, Johnny DeLuca, Caleb Ferguson, Victor Gonzalez, Enrique Hernandez, Shelby Miller, David Peralta, Ahmed Rosario, and Michael Busch. That is a lot of names leaving, but look at what they brought in. Arguably the greatest player in the game, Shohei Ohtani. Granted, not going to be able to be the greatest player in the game this year because he's going to be restricted to DH because, of course, he had to have surgery. He won't be pitching all year long. And, of course, they're not going to want to throw him in the field. He can play the outfield, for those of you who don't know, but you don't want to put him out there because he'll have to throw, which kind of defeats the purpose of saving his arm after the surgery. So DH only, still a fantastic bat. Yamamoto, he could be immediately an X factor. And then after that, everyone else is just role players coming in to replace the other role players they lost. It's the Dodgers. They're going to do great. Let's move on to the Central. So in last place, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates, but really, this National League Central is so close from top to bottom that you could write a story that would be believable, a script, if you may, for how any of these teams could win the division. So I've got the narrowest margin from bottom to top in this division. In fact, it's 8 games from the bottom to the top. That's pretty freaking narrow. So anyway, I've got the Pirates with 79 victories in last place. They're young, they're talented, but they're also inexperienced, and I don't think they have enough talent to make up for it. But if enough of those young players take the step forward that they could potentially do all in this year, we saw it at the beginning of last year. They made a run where they looked very good. Now, of course, they fell off. Could they do that again? I wouldn't be surprised if they had another run like that, but it needs to be longer than, what was it, a month, 6 weeks? Got to be longer than that for them to make the playoffs. The additions are Marco Gonzalez, Martin Perez, Aroldis Chapman, and Rowdy Tellez. Key departures are Vince Velasquez, Jarlin Garcia, Angel Perdomo, and Miguel Andujar. And overall, I think what they brought in is definitely better than what they lost, which is one of the reasons why I gave them a few more victories, not just because of the young talent. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I might have went a little low. Yeah, I might regret giving them only 79 victories. I'll stick with that, but if they have more, let's remember this. I'm doubting myself. Yeah, because Marco Gonzalez, he's not much, but he's a number 5 starter. He's a legitimate major league starter. They needed help in that department. Martin Perez, when healthy, is another solid starter. Unfortunately, those are 2 guys at the back end of the rotation, but it's good to have some lefties. And of course, Chapman and Tellez. Chapman should help that bullpen. Maybe we'll see where he's at in his career. And Tellez is, there again, kind of a nice platoon bat, DH, first base. I think he should do well for them versus what they lost. Definitely an improvement. Next up, I have the Cincinnati Reds at 82 victories. That's actually the same amount of victories they had last year, but they're starting off with an unfortunate suspension by Noelvi Marte. They've also got several injuries they're going to have to deal with. Lots of key players are going to be missing the beginning of their season, and that's basically why I have them with the same record. I actually didn't intentionally give them the exact same record, but that's kind of how it worked out when I kind of plotted everything out. Key additions are Jamir Candelario, Frankie Montas, Nick Martinez, Emil Pagan, and Brent Suter. Key departures, Joey Votto, he'll be missed. Nick Senzel, Derek Law, and Kurt Casale. Overall, I'd say they gained more than they lost. And then, of course, with that young talent, that should all help. But those key injuries and that one suspension, that's gonna hurt, and that's why I got them basically right where they're at. You could write a scenario where they get first place in that division, but it's gonna take a lot. Next up, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. I also have them with 82 victories. I am giving them the slight nudge into third place over the Reds just because they've done it before. They still have a lot of talent, but they did lose quite a bit. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, so to speak, with this. So key additions: Rhys Hoskins, Gary Sanchez, Jacob Junis, Jake Bowers, Joey Ortiz, DL Hall, and Joe Ross. That's some talent. None of which are high-end talent, but that's some solid talent. They did lose quite a bit, though. They lost Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Rowdy Tellez, Adrian Hauser, Carlos Santana, Mark Canna, Jesse Winker. That's not really lost. That's an addition by subtraction. Josh Donaldson, Tyrone Taylor, and Andrew Chafin. While they did gain some serious talent, they lost more than they gained. I just don't see them being the team that they were. I was a believer in them last year. I don't remember what I had them at last year, but I think I had them at a decent position, and I believe they exceeded it, just like they exceeded most people's expectations. But I think I was higher on them than I was on most. But yeah, 92 victories in first place. That's not happening this season. So next up, we have the St. Louis Cardinals with 86 victories. I think last year was it was pretty bad. It was really bad for them, but I think it's something they can recover from. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were the previous several seasons, but the Cardinals have been a very good team for a long time. I don't see them being that bad for more than just a season. Key additions are Sonny Gray, who is going to start the year on the IL, but once he comes back, expect him to be normal Sonny Gray. Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Andrew Kittredge, Kenyon Middleton, and Matt Carpenter. Key departures, Adam Wainwright, Tyler O'Neill, Andrew Keisner, and Richie Palacios. So I think they definitely brought in more than they lost. But yeah, last year was pretty rough, but they've got some serious hitting in that lineup still, even with losing Tyler O'Neill. But pitching was definitely the issue with them last year, and they brought in quite a bit. Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. Gibson and Lynn, I mean, that's going to be depending on how Lynn bounces back. He had a horrific season, but he's been such a good pitcher for so long. I wouldn't be surprised if he was pretty good. So if Gibson and Lynn are your 4 and 5. Gray, when he comes back, hopefully he's solid in addition to the other pieces that they had last year. I think that they can be, well, except for Adam Wainwright, who of course retired. That should be enough to get them significantly better than they were. And, well, come on. 71 versus 86 victories. I think I'm definitely boosting them up. But who I have winning the division, and I think this is a relatively common pick, which makes me sad to pick them too. It is the Chicago Cubs. I'd like to try and do something a little different, but I think they are best team in this division. But it's close. It's absolutely close. I have them at 87 victories. Last year they had 83, and they brought in some pieces, and I think that will be the difference. Plus, they have a few young players who I expect to take a moderate step forward. They added Yency Almonte, Michael Bush, Shoto Amaga, and Hector Neris, but they did lose. This list is wrong. It says that Cody Bellinger left. That's wrong. Wrong. All right, but they did lose Jaimer Candelario and Marcus Stroman. That's a solid infielder and a pretty good starter, but I think Imanaga makes up for all that, just him alone, plus the other additions. Plus, like I said, I expect some of the youngsters to take a step forward. That's why they get a few more victories, and they take the division. So now moving on to the NL East. In last place, we have the Washington Nationals. I expect this to actually be kind of a 3-team race for last place, but I am giving the Nationals the edge out on being bad. While they have a ton of young talents, they would need to step forward to get out of last place. And while I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them take that step, I don't know if enough of them will. So 77 victories. Last year they had 71 victories, so I did give them 8 more wins. I think that's a reflection of my belief in their young talent. Their key additions, Joey Gallo, Nick Senzel, and Dylan Florio. They did lose Dominic Smith and Andres Machado. Didn't lose a whole lot, didn't gain a whole lot. Overall, probably a little better for their additions than their losses. But really, this team is going to ride and die with that young talent. In 4th place in the NL East, I have the Miami Marlins with 80 victories. That is 4 less than last year. And based off the players that they lost, let's go over the additions and subtractions first. This time, they are adding Christian Betancourt, Vidal Brujan, Johan Bride, and Calvin Foucher? That's Foucher. But they lost Jorge Soler, Joey Wendell, Jacob Stalling, Yuri Gurriel, which at this point in his career, and David Robertson. They didn't lose a ton, but I think they gained less. And overall, I would say probably the biggest loss that they have actually wasn't a loss out of the organization. It's a loss due to injury. Sandy Alcantara is going to be out for the year. The biggest hit to them. The reason why I don't have them stepping too far back is just they have so much young, talented starting pitching. I expect one or more of those guys to step up and make up for a lot of those losses. Yes, they're gonna take a bit of a step back. 80 victories. Come on, they're not making a wild card spot with 80 victories, but I think they'll be in it for a while. We'll see how they do. So in 3rd place, we have the New York Mets with 81 victories. I think last year was a bit of an aberration. They did quite a bit of rearranging. Let's see what it looks like. Of course, a lot of that was during the trade deadline, but this is what they did this last offseason. They added Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Harrison Bader, and Joey Wendell. Now at the deadline, this is all at the deadline, they lost Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, David Robinson, and Tommy Pham. So really this offseason, they've made additions. Nobody's going to be huge for them, but solid outfielder in Harrison Bader. We'll see if he's able to hit. That's the big key with him, but he's fast as hell. He's going to cover some ground out there, which is always a good thing. Joey Wendell's a great utility infielder to have. Sean Manaea, we'll see if he can get back to his pre-injury form. And basically the same with Luis Severino. He's got such a high ceiling, but he hasn't hit that in so long. I think they've added way more than they've lost. And one big thing will be their second baseman. His name escapes me right now. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments below. Can he even throw? Is he just going to be DHing? What's going on with him? That's going to be a bit of an X factor. And he's always been kind of an up and down kind of hitter. He goes from he's this contact guy with a little bit of pop, but is he going to hit 60 or is he gonna hit 320? How much value is he gonna provide as a DH? Because that's what he's gonna be if he can't throw. We'll see. Next up, I have the Philadelphia Phillies with 90 victories. That is actually the same record as last year, and I think they're basically kind of the same team. They didn't lose much. They didn't gain much. They added Colby Allard, Michael Rucker, and Max Castillo. They lost Rhys Hoskins, who was out all of last year anyway, and Craig Kimbrell. Yeah, I think it's going to be about the same. There's a lot of talent on that team, especially on offense. But one thing to watch out for, and they've got a ton of talent. Is this going to be a team that gets old fast? I'm saying no, obviously, with 90 victories. But I think the Phillies, one of these years, I don't think this year, but soon, they're going to be kind of like the Cardinals last year. They're going to look really old, really fast. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe it happens a year sooner. Actually, I'm not even necessarily saying that it'll happen next year, but I think it's going to happen out of nowhere. Is that going to be this year? I don't think so. But if it does, I brought up the question. And next, of course, we have the Atlanta Braves in first place. I have them with 99 victories. Like I said, Dodgers are the only team I predicted with over 100. And, the Braves got 99 victories. That's 5 less wins than last year. And logically speaking, if you look at their additions and their subtractions, which let's just do that right now. They added Chris Sale, which God knows what you're getting out of Chris Sale. He's definitely an X factor. Jared Kelenic, can he take that step forward? He's looked like ass this spring, and that's putting it nicely. But, it's a long season. Former top prospect, at times looked amazing in his first 3 seasons, but those were short times. Can the Braves fix that, or is he just going to be another project that flounders? I don't know. Ronaldo Lopez and Aaron Bummer. Key departures, Eddie Rosario, Kirby Yates, Kyle Wright, Mike Soroka, and Nicky Lopez. Probably about the same, but if Sale, really they added some X factors. If Sale's healthy and looks like the old Chris Sale, if Jared Kelenic can finally take that step forward, they could win 120 games. That's 2 huge ifs. Sale hasn't been healthy in a long time. Kelenic has yet to let's try that again. Kelenic has yet to string together an above average stretch longer than 100, longer than 6 weeks. Can he do that? I don't know. Not looking like it so far, but the Braves are also the Braves. They might be able to fix him. So kind of why I have them as taking a step back. They are arguably the most talented team in baseball. I have them behind the Dodgers in that respect, but they're so good. So good. Do I really need to go any further? They are so good. Let's move on to the American League West. And of course, I have the Oakland A's, just like everybody else. I have them with 55 victories this year. That is 5 more victories than last year. It's hard to be that bad for that long. Plus, I think they added more than they lost. They added Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, Trevor Gott, Abraham Toro, Miguel Andujar, Mitch Spence, and Scott Alexander. While they only lost Tony Kemp, Trevor May, James I've always struggled with his name. Caprislian. There's not even an S or a C in there to give you in there. Caprillion. Sorry. And Jonah Bride. Really, so the best 2 players that you're losing is a middle reliever and a utility player. So while they didn't bring in much, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, solid back end, at least for most teams, and Mitch Spence, back end starting pitching. And of course, that's going to be an improvement on really some of the worst pitching we've seen in a long time. Plus Trevor Gott, nice middle reliever. He's basically going to be the new Trevor May, and then whatever with the other guys. So yeah. Plus, they've got some young talent that I expect to take a step forward. Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, 55 victories might be, I might be selling them short. They might push 60. I wouldn't be surprised now that I'm looking at it if they push 60. but also how many of them are they going to trade at the deadline? Wouldn't be surprised. So that might kind of offset it. They might be pacing towards the low to mid 60s and then trade some guys off and they'll kind of tank. So we'll see. Next up, we have, and this is no surprise to anybody, the first 2 spots, everybody has the same. We have the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or as everybody with a brain calls them, the Anaheim Angels. I have them at 68 victories. I just couldn't reconcile them doing well this season. When you lose Shohei Ohtani, really, what's going to happen? Well, let's look at the key additions and losses. They added Robert Stevenson, a solid arm, at least until he goes to Anaheim. They somehow kill arms. I don't know how they do it. Matt Moore, a fantastic backup quarterback in his day, and Aaron Hicks. They're fine players. They're all fine players. Robert Stevenson's actually a good reliever, but they lost Shohei Ohtani. They lost Devin Fletcher, which he hasn't been able to hit in how long? And they lost Max Stassi, who looked like a solid major league catcher. He kind of fell off a cliff. I kind of expect him to be a bounce back candidate. I think he's with Chicago now. We haven't got to Chicago yet. I haven't seen his name yet. I think he went to the White Sox. I kind of expect him to be, I mean, he's not going to be amazing, but if they could have kept him along with their starting catcher, I forget his name, that they got from the Phillies a couple years back, Logan Ohapi. How do you say that? Let me know in the comments below. I think he would have been a great backup to Logan, but they lost him. And really, in the end, I think this team is just on the verge of a collapse. This is going to be that year. Sorry, Angels fans. I really am. You don't deserve this, but I don't see the young players taking that step forward. And they do have some talented players, or at least we think they're talented. Neto, Shanuel, and of course, Ohapi, whatever the F his name is. I don't see, I think Logan's going to be your best shot at taking that step forward, and nobody else is going to do anything. Could be wrong. Prove me wrong, Angels. Let's see it. Next up, this might be a controversial pick, but I think if you look at their roster, it makes sense. We have the Texas Rangers. I have them with 85 victories. That's 5 less victories than last year. They had 90. They did add Kirby Yates, David Robertson, and Tyler Mahle. That will help. Pitching obviously is their weakness. That is a huge weakness, but unfortunately, while they did add 3 valuable pitchers, they did lose Mitch Garver, which they have the hitting to make up for. That's not a huge loss, but they've lost Jordan Montgomery, unless he re-signs, but at this point, doesn't look like it. We're going to assume he's gone. Actually, I'm just going to assume that Jordan Montgomery goes off into the ether. He's with nobody right now. Will Smith, that guy slaps. And of course, Chris Stratton and Aroldis Chapman. Obviously, Jordan Montgomery is the biggest loss here, but they lost 3 bullpen pieces out of an already very, very weak bullpen. I just don't think they can make up for it. Plus, they've got DeGrom still out, Scherzer still out, and then Mahle, who they just got, he's going to start the year on the IL. They already have thin pitching as it is, and it's going to be tested, and it's going to be tested early. So then they're going to be relying on guys like Nathan Eovaldi, Andrew Heaney, both of which have injury histories of their own, lengthy, significant histories. When they are on, they are fantastic pitchers. Are they going to be healthy? Are they just not going to be on? Who knows? If they can be healthy and on, that will keep them in this race. There is a world where they could win this division. Just because I have them in third doesn't mean that I don't think they've got a shot at it. They do. They absolutely do. But they're going to need that. They're going to need those guys to be healthy and on to stand a chance, because they're going to hit. They are going to hit. They are going to destroy some teams' pitching staff. It's going to be nice to follow the Rangers in the schedule. But John Gray, he's kind of hit or miss, but always healthy. Dane Dunning, what do you do? That's kind of some shaky pitching to be relying on until at least the summer. And then even at that, DeGrom has been one of the best pitchers in the game for the last several years when healthy, but how long is that going to last? How long will he be able to keep that up? Eventually, injuries will have to catch up to him. They always do, not to mention age. He's getting older. Eventually, he's just not going to be the pitcher he was. Will that be this year? I don't know. Will we even see him? I don't know. Max Scherzer, he looked human. For the first time in his career, he looked human. And an injury, surgery, in addition to that, you think he's going to come back and be better? Probably not. Probably not. He's a fun pitcher to watch, so I wouldn't be sad to see him come back and do well. But man, I wouldn't bet on it. Wouldn't do it. And next up, we have the Seattle Mariners in second place and with 89 victories. That's only 1 more victory than last year. year. And if they didn't have so many pitching injury issues to start the year, I did have them higher at one point. But Brian Wu's starting the year on the IL. Matt Brash is starting the year on the IL. And Gregory Santos is starting the year on the IL. That is probably their second and third best relievers in one of the best bullpens in baseball. I wouldn't say the best, top 5. So when you remove 2 of the top 3, probably second and third, and then the number 5 starter when healthy, I would say the best rotation in baseball, but still, and I would say the best number 5 starter. One of the reasons why it's the best, but injuries, it hurts. That moves them back. That's going to cost them some victories. Their key additions, Mitch Garver, they're going to DH him only. I think that will give him an opportunity to play more games than he's ever played before. Still probably only getting maybe 120 in, but he's never played more than 104, I want to say. Dude rakes. Hopefully he doesn't touch the field at all. He also brought back Mitch Haniger. That guy he's been good his whole career. His problem has been health. Is he going to get 7 at-bats this year? Is he going to get 400, 500? Who knows? They do plan on using him in kind of a platoon-ish role with Luke Raley, a new addition, and also an addition from last year in Dominic Canzone. So we'll see. We'll see with that. He's definitely a bit of an X factor like we've talked about with other players. There's also Jorge Polanco they brought in, one of the better hitting second basemen in the league. Not a great defender, but considering they had arguably the worst second base situation in baseball last year, because Colton Wong decided that he wanted to swing a pool noodle. Actually, he looked like he didn't even have a pool noodle in his hand. He just showed up without anything to swing. That was one of the worst offensive performances I've ever seen out of a player, and that came out of nowhere. Wow. And then they also brought in Luis Urias, who, yes, had a bad year last year, but he was injured pretty much the whole year. Took a significant mental hit. I think that affected him too. But he's going to have to bounce back. We'll see. We shall see. They did lose Jose Caballero, a fun but flawed player. He really stepped up when Colton Wong went down with the not able to hits. So, yeah. But they lost him. He was probably going to start in AAA anyway. They lost Marco Gonzalez, who they didn't really have a spot for in the rotation after Miller and Wu stepped up last year. So, yeah, that's not a huge loss, although now with Wu being out, it'd be nice to have Marco. Lost Teoscar Hernandez, who had a career worst year. Jared Kelenic, we've already talked about him. Tom Murphy, talked about him. Robbie Ray, Eugenio Suarez, talked about those guys too. Some key losses, but they brought in some key talent. I think they take a step forward, but injuries are going to hurt that step forward, and that's why they only have one more victory. So, of course, first place, as you would clearly deduce, the Astros. How can you not pick the Astros? They've won it about 100,000 years in a row. They've gone to the American League Championship Series, 7 years in a row? 8 years in a row? Some ridiculous amount. I just can't pick against the Astros. I didn't last year, and I was right, unfortunately, and I'm not going to do it again. Until somebody can prove that they can defeat the Astros, they get first place from me. I have them with 91 victories. How did that compare to last year? I don't have them pulled up. They had 90 last year. I guess I have them taking a step forward by 1 game. Key additions, Josh Hader. That is huge. Huge. Victor Carantini, backup catcher. Whatever. Key departures. Looks like Michael Brantley is retiring, so that's a thing. Martin Maldonado, whatever. Hector Neris, Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek, and Kendall Graveman. Due to injury, he's still on the team. They're mostly the same team. They definitely improved the back end, adding a new closer to be kind of a 1-2 punch, but they lost a lot of middle depth. I think it kind of evens out in the end. But if they have some injuries in the pen, that's going to hurt way more than any other year. And they're starting the year with some serious injuries in the rotation. Everybody is expected to come back, but they're going to be losing a lot of guys for a bit of time. And I think that hurts them. But still, it's the Astros. 91 victories. Let's move on. Now to the AL Central, I have the Chicago White Sox coming in last place with 54 victories. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Last year, they had 61. I think they're worse. They're younger. They could take a step forward at some point, but they're bad. They're really bad. And they definitely rearranged the furniture on the Titanic this year. They added Eric Reddy, Mike Soroka, Nicky Lopez, Paul DeYoung, John Bribia, Tim Hill, Shane Drohan, Jared Schuster, Martin Maldonado. I am struggling here Max Stassi, Dominic Fletcher, Chris Flexen, Zach Deloach, Rolando Baroa, Zach Pilar, and Braden Shoemake? Probably Schumacher. There's not an R at the end. That's how you spell it. All right. That's a whole lot of junk. Who's going to be the biggest impact player of that group? Hard to say. Hulda Young? Rolando Baroa? It's a whole lot of crap right there. But if they can get some of these bounce back players, it could help. But I think they're just filling out the ranks. They did lose Tim Anderson. That's kind of an addition by subtraction based off of the way he hit last year. Oh my God. Liam Hendricks, that one hurts. Brian Shaw, Mike Clevenger, Yasmani Grandal, Elvis Andrus, Aaron Bummer, Jose Uria, Gregory Santos. That one might be their biggest loss right there. Romy Gonzalez, Declan Cronin, Luis Patino, and Christian Manaya. How do you say that? I don't know. Let me know if you know. Yeah, it's a whole lot of crap kind of coming in and out. Probably the best player in the whole group. They're kind of old, kind of young at the same time. I don't know. I don't see them doing much. Let's move on. Next up, we have quite the leap in victories. Actually, it's 20. I have the Detroit Tigers with 80 victories. They're young. They're talented. I don't think they have enough to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to take another step forward. It's a good team. Good team. They might get there next year, but I don't think it's going to be this year. Key additions are Kenta Maeda, Jack Flaherty, Shelby Miller, Andrew Chafin, and Mark Canna. All solid additions. Nobody's game changing, but solid additions. They unfortunately added more to their pitching staff, which was pretty good. It's their offense that I'm concerned about. Mark Canna will help with that, but they need more. They did have the retirement of Miguel Cabrera, which I hate to say, but it's probably an addition by subtraction. They did lose Eduardo Rodriguez and Jose Cisnero. I think overall they probably added more than they lost in the pitching department and hitting department for that matter. The team got better, and that's why. I didn't tell you what they had for last year. They had 78 victories last year. I'm giving them 2 more. I could see a scenario where they pick or where they win the division. I don't think that's going to happen. They were hot at the end of last year. They've got some young talent, but it needs to step forward. And often after you see a step forward, you see a step back, and then a larger step forward. I think that's going to happen with a few of their players, making it so that they do progress, they do get better. I'm kind of talking myself into a better record than 80 wins, but that's what I have written down. But also, I think as far as the possible range of wins and losses, I think 80 is more on the lower end. I think there's a higher upswing than downswing for them. So next up, and this is where it's really tight for me, I think this might be a bit of a controversial pick. I think a lot of people are choosing either this team or the Tigers to win the division, which I probably just gave it away. 82 victories. I've got the Twins. That's a 5 victory step back from last year. And overall, I think they did get a little worse. They do have they're again talking about young talent. They do have some players, but is Buxton going to be healthy this year? Is he going to not hit like for the first time in his career? What's going to happen? Apparently, they're going to back in the field, which is great. Is he going to get hurt? Who knows? That's a huge X factor. They added Carlos Santana, Anthony Desclafani, Justin Topa, Jay Jackson, Josh Stabmount, but they lost Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda, Emilio Pagan, Jorge Polanco, Michael A. Taylor. Actually, I think he's off in the ether. As far as I know, he hasn't signed yet. Donovan Solano, I haven't seen him sign either, but he's a small enough name. He might not have signed, or might not have generated a big enough headline. So those guys could potentially return, but they're one of the teams, can't believe we haven't talked about this yet, dealing with the regional sports network, the RSN issues. So that's going to hurt them. And of course, Joey Gallo. Yeah, I think they just lost more than they're going to be able to make up for. But I could easily see them winning the division, but I don't have them winning the division. I'm giving that to the Cleveland Guardians. 83 victories, which is 6 more than last year. I think their step back that they had last year, I don't expect that to be sustained. I think they're a very flawed team, as is every team in that division, but I think they've got the talent. They added Scott Barlow, Esteban Florio, Austin Hedges, if you can call that an addition, Ben Lively, Davion de Los Santos, and Carlos Carrasco. Cookie Carrasco, he came back on a minor league deal. We'll see if he makes the team. They did lose Cal Quantrill and Denial de Los Santos, one de Los Santos for another, Cody Morris, and Oscar Gonzalez. I think they added more than they lost, and I could see a world where Bo Naylor takes a big step forward. Duke can rake. I also think, God, what's his name? I always get him and the other guy that came over in the Lindor trade. What's his name? You know, let me know in the comments below. He took a serious step back last year. I don't expect him to go back to where he was in 2022, but somewhere in between 2023 and 2022. I think that will help. And yeah, any of these last three teams could win the division, but I'm choosing Guardians. Next up in our final division, we have the Boston Red Sox starting off in 5th place. I have them with 75 victories. That's 3 less than last year, and I didn't believe in that team last year, and they fell off, and I think they've lost more than they gained. But I don't know. They did add some younger players. We'll see. So they added Lucas Giolito, huge X factor. Who knows what you're going to get out of him? Tyler O'Neill, there again, when healthy, can be very good, can be, not always. And then Vaughn Grissom hasn't taken that step into that top prospect status, to realize the potential that you get with the top prospect status. If he does, they'll probably have more than 75 victories, but that's a big if. They lost Chris Sale, huge X factor again. Justin Turner, solid bat. Alex Verdugo, solid player. James Paxton, solid player when healthy. And Adam Duvall, solid player. They've also got some young guys who I expect to, Tristan Casas for one, that center fielder for another. Those guys could definitely take a step forward. And I think that kind of offsets, for the most part, their losses. Because if you look at their additions versus their losses, I think they lost more than they gained, but they did gain more potential than they lost. But potential doesn't always get realized. Often it doesn't. So yeah, we're going with 75 victories and last place. Next up, and this is where it gets muddy, I have the Tampa Bay Rays with 85 victories. That might be a little higher than everybody else is picking. I don't know. I actually haven't been looking at it, but I would be willing to bet that other people are going higher, or going lower with them, and it's just because like their entire pitching staff is injured. So it's understandable if you predict lower than 85 victories. But the Rays have been able, maybe better than any other team in baseball, with the possible exception of the Mariners or Guardians. But I'd probably put the Rays at number 1 as far as being able to just pull pitching out of nowhere. And that's why I think they still get 85 victories and contend for the last wild card spot. They added Ryan Papoy, Johnny DeLuca, Jose Caballero, Richie Policios. I'm sure that's not how you say that, my bad. Phil Maton, Chris Davinsky, never mind, he resigned, and Tyler Alexander. They did lose Tyler Glasnow, speaking of Tylers, Manuel Margot, Luke Rayleigh, Robert Stevenson, Andrew Kittredge, Christian Betancourt, and Jake Dietman. Yeah, they lost a lot. They gained a lot. I think they lost more than they gained, and just the injuries I think that's going to be the main difference maker for them. I expect them to be contending for a playoff spot in September. I'll let you know in just a little bit whether I think they make it. Next up, I have the Toronto Blue Jays with 87 victories in 3rd place in this division. That's 2 less than last year, and you know what? They brought back John Schneider. Sorry, Blue Jays fans. You don't deserve John Schneider, but you're stuck with John Schneider. They added Yariel Rodriguez, Isaiah Kiner Falefa, whatever. Justin Turner, but they lost Matt Chapman, Brandon Belt, Whit Merrifield, Hyunjin Ryu, and Jordan Wicks. Chapman, I don't think is going to be a big loss. His bat really fell off. I don't think he's gonna be much of a hitter this year, so I think that was actually not that Chapman's gonna hold you back, but I think the money that they saved by letting Chapman walk is going to be a victory in the end for them. Losing Brandon Belt, that bat hurts. Whit Merrifield's a nice bench player. They basically get the same kind of thing out of a younger Isaiah Kiner Falefa, and I am butchering his name, I'm sorry. Justin Turner, a solid bat, but I don't think he's going to be what Brandon Belt was. Overall, I think it's going to be about the same, maybe a little bit worse, and really it's mainly just the same team running it back, and that's kind of why I have a similar record. I think the American League's a little weaker, including them this year. There's a lot of talent moving to the National League. Next up, we have maybe the biggest swing pick in this division. I could see them doing significantly worse than this. I could see them doing significantly better. I kind of went in between, and that is the New York Yankees with 87 victories. I gave them the nudge over the Blue Jays just because I think they have the higher ceiling. Also, they have the lower floor, as I mentioned. They made a huge swing in the offseason. They picked up Juan Soto on a rental, Alex Verdugo, Marcus Stroman, Trent Grisham, Caleb Ferguson, and Victor Gonzalez. They did lose Luis Severino, Michael King, Wandy Peralta, Kyle Higashoka, and Isaiah Kiner Falefa. Still think I'm saying his name wrong. You just look at the what's coming and what's going. They absolutely gained way more than they lost. But they're going to be starting the year with Hole on the IL. You never know what you're going to get with a lot of these pitchers, a lot of these players. We're banking on a comeback from Rizzo. We're kind of banking on a comeback from DJ LeMahieu. We're banking on some young players stepping forward who all have shown potential, but I think I just don't see any of these young guys taking that step forward this year. I would say Belope, I'm kind of predicting a 2025 breakout, but I think he struggles again this year. I don't see the youngsters stepping forward. Jason Dominguez is starting the year on the 60-day IL. Is he out for the whole year, or is he just... I don't know. I just know that he's injured and he's out for a significant amount of time. So even if he comes back, that an extended spring, do you really expect him to be an impact player? No, I don't. Yeah, you got Carlos Rendon. Is he going to be potential Cy Young award winner, or is he just going to be hurt? Which sometimes he pitches through that and doesn't pitch well. Sometimes he's just out. Garrett Cole's of course out. Nestor Cortez, he's a fun player to watch, but what are we going to see out of him? It's kind of all over the place. Luis Gil, I wouldn't bank on him. He's got all kinds of potential, but he is yet to realize that. Clark Schmidt, there's just a whole lot of ceiling and a whole lot of floor with the Yankees. Got him in second place. First place, the only team we haven't talked about in the entirety of this video, is the Baltimore Orioles. I have them with 90 victories. I'm sure there's lots of people who are predicting way more than that, and there is a ton of talent, and they made some huge additions, which I think helps. I've talked about sophomore slumps, and I don't think they're as big of a thing as they were in 20 years ago, but they're still a thing. I know some people think that they don't exist anymore. I'm talking about some people, some people in the ether. But anyway, they're absolutely still a thing. But anyway, yes, they had 101 victories last year. I don't expect them to repeat that. Like I've said, it's hard to predict a team with 100 or more victories. I'm just not going to do it with them. Their key additions are, and this is pretty big, Corbin Burns and Craig Kimbrell. Their key departures are Adam Frazier, Kyle Gibson, and Aaron Hicks. Obviously, that is significant. Corbin Burns alone, the biggest weakness of that team, absolutely the top end of that starting rotation. He addresses that. Getting Craig Kimbrell, that helps because they lost Bautista. He's going to be out for the full year, and that's going to be a significant loss for them. They're kind of like the Rangers. They're going to hit and they pitch enough. Yes, their pitching is better than the Rangers, but that's going to be the key to how far they go is their pitching. They have so much young talent on the offensive side. I think that makes up for the loss of Adam Frazier and Aaron Hicks pretty easily. Even with some of the younger guys taking a step back, they've got more guys coming up, and I just don't see them doing too horribly. I'm pretty sure I'm on the low end for these guys, but yeah, they're gonna be good. Everybody has them good. I have them at the lower end of good. Let's move on to the playoffs. So let's go back to the National League. You can probably piece it together based off of the records that I gave you. So number 1 seed, Los Angeles Dodgers. Number 2 seed, Atlanta Braves. Number 3 is the Chicago Cubs, just kind of out of default. Somebody has to win the division, or the Central Division, I should say. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Phillies as the top wild card spot, and then after that, I have the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks tied for that last spot. I gave the higher spot to the Diamondbacks, but it could really go either way. Just the tiebreaker, I think just that young talent will break through, but we'll see. You also have that veteran talent with the Cardinals. It's definitely the yin and the yang. We'll see. So how do we want to do this? Do we want to go one league and then the other, I think we'll do it that way. We'll go to the World Series, and then we'll find out who in the American League we'll meet them up. So in the first round, we have the Cubs hosting the Cardinals, and we have the Phillies hosting the Diamondbacks. I have the Cubs defeating the Cardinals, and I have the Phillies defeating the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks made it happen last year, so of course we've seen the scenario where they made it. But the Phillies have two things that are huge in the playoffs. They have top and starting pitching, arguably the most important thing in playoffs. They say pitching and defense wins you championships. They definitely don't have defense. They do not have defense, but with Bryce Harper not hogging up the DH role, it will help their defense. They'll be able to move Schwarber and sometimes Castellanos into that DH spot, which will help them out on defense. And yeah, they've got that top end pitching. I just expect that and the offense just raking to get the job done. So next up, in the next round, we have the Braves hosting the Cubs, and the Dodgers hosting Phillies. And Braves versus Cubs, this is easy. It's the Braves. It's not going to be close. I think the Braves are going to blow the doors off the Cubs. No offense, Cubs fans. I just don't think you're quite there, and the Braves are just so good. Dodgers and Phillies. I think this will actually be a very good series because the Phillies have they've really seemed to build they seem to have a formula for the playoffs, and they do quite well. The Dodgers, on the other hand, probably the most talented team in baseball, possible exception of the Braves. I'm going Dodgers. I'm really mixed. I'm really mixed on this one. I could see it going either way, but I'm going Dodgers. And then Braves, Dodgers. It's close, but I think the Braves get it done. I think their pitching is too good. Pitching wins championships, and their offense is also, it's crazy good. It is so good. Braves go to the World Series. Now, in the American League, top seed, I've got the Astros by hair. Number 2 seed, Orioles. 3 seed, Guardians, by default, barely with a winning record. Top wild card spot goes to the Mariners. Next up, we have the Yankees, and then the Blue Jays. I could easily see the Rangers sneaking in here. I think their pitching issues are going to keep them out, but they do have so much offense. Maybe it keeps them afloat enough. I don't know. I would absolutely not be surprised to see them make it in. Like I said, I could see them winning the division, possibly. It's a tough one. The AL is pretty muddled this year. But anyway, so we've got the Guardians hosting the Blue Jays and the Mariners hosting the Yankees. And Guardians, Blue Jays, I will always go against John Schneider every time. John Schneider blows the series for his team, even though the Blue Jays are more talented. I think he kills it for him. I think Guardians move on. Plus, they have home field advantage. That helps too. Next up, Mariners, Yankees, and there again, we've got some serious potential in the Yankees, but we've got best pitching staff in baseball in the Mariners. I've said it several times in this video. Pitching wins championships, and I think the pitching gets the Mariners at least past the Yankees. Next up, in the division series, we have the Astros hosting the Guardians and the Orioles hosting the Mariners. Astros and Guardians, the road ends for the Guardians. It was a fun story, but the Astros are just too good. The Guardians got a lucky draw facing the Blue Jays, and it's over. Astros go to another championship series. Now, this one might be the best series in the entirety of the playoffs, with the possible exception of Dodgers versus Phillies. I think this is going to be an amazing series. Orioles hosting the Mariners, and even though the Mariners have the pitching, hands down, the Orioles have just too much offensive talent, and I think they have just enough pitching to get past them. Corbin Burns will be a difference maker, and it's hard to go against a 3-person rotation in Castillo, Herbie, and Gilbert. If you have to have a 4th in there, Bryce Miller going in there for possible game 4, maybe, depending on how things go for one game. But Orioles offense is just so much better than Mariners. I don't see it. I'd love to be wrong. I'm a Mariners fan, but I don't see it. Orioles move on to the ALCS. So then I went chalk across the board, didn't I? Damn, that sucks. I did have some upsets at certain points, but yeah, I guess I did. That's a little boring. Well, no, I didn't in the end. I chose the number 2 seed in the NL. Okay. And here we have it, Astros versus Orioles, and it's hard to ever go against the Astros because they always do it, and it does kind of feel like Dusty Baker held them back a little bit. He's a Hall of Fame coach, but but in his older years, I think he was kind of losing it. Yeah, I'm still going with Baltimore. Baltimore going to the World Series. Who do we have? Orioles versus Braves, and the NL, at least the top of the NL, is just so much better than the top of the AL. And I think overall, which is weird, seems like the AL has been better for so many years, but I think we're seeing a shift this year. I think the NL dominates. I think the Braves take it to the Orioles. I think they beat them in 5. Orioles sneak a game in there somehow with that offense, but the Braves are just too complete of a team, top to bottom. Braves win the World Series 2024. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to join me for some live streams, playing MLB The Show, playing Madden, playing Out of the Park Baseball, playing NBA 2K24, all that fun stuff, jump on down, hit the big red subscribe button below. We stream 3 days a week. It'll be fun. And yeah, until next time, this is Extinguisher 10 signing out. Have a great rest of your day.